Shall we roll it?
Yeah.
Here we go then. Hello and welcome to Faster Horses. I'm one of your hosts, Paul Wilshaw. I've led design and development teams at Barclays and other well-known brands, won lots of awards and a few hackathons.
I'm Nick Tomlinson. I'm a digital illustrator and lead UX designer at a Manchester-based investment company.
And I'm Mark Sutcliffe, lead UX designer in the digital automation sphere.
Coming up, we'll be talking about design, user experience, and technology, followed by UX Tombola, where we pick apart the experience of a random product, object, service, or place, and a special advert from Mark Steeler from Bolton Arcade.
Hello, thank you. On with the show.
If you want to be part of the show, you can send us questions on Twitter with the hashtag FasterHorsesPodcast. Now, on to the show.
That was fantastic. That was the new intro, everyone.
That was what
for Series 4.
I
Yeah.
know.
Experience.
Like, can you believe it? Mark Steeler has become so ingrained into the production. He even features on the intro.
To be honest, it's always there in a subconscious level, I think, for everyone that listens to Faster Horses, somewhat like an infectious disease. He is the athlete's
bubbling
foot
below the surface
of podcast personalities.
I was going to have another viral infection suggestion there.
Well, technically, it's not a viral infection, so this flow's yours. If you want.
Well, okay, I don't.
If you want to talk about your herpes,
yeah. Well, I don't want to. But I think it's fair to be open with my partners about that.
Yes.
Particular.
Is Mark Steeler among them? Pray tell, 'cause that's a bit of gossip.
If I count my cards right, he may well be. That's the aim. Anyway,
I mean, drink first, love.
There he is. There he is.
He's back.
Yeah, he's back. How's things?
What, with me or with Mark Steeler?
Well, I know
kind of
Mark Steeler's
kind of a symbiotic relationship forming, I think.
Okay.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
I don't know if I've said that.
I always thought gander was a kind of a verb, but it's never. Is it the female goose?
Well,
yes.
Or a herd of geese?
It's I think it's a female goose, but it's also slang for having a look, isn't it?
It's also a town in Newfoundland.
Oh, good. Well, let's go and have a look at the female geese in
It's
Newfoundland.
actually a male goose.
Oh, is it?
Or a simpleton. Who knew there was such rich lore around this word?
Oh, no. This is adding to everybody's highlight. The word of the day is gander.
Let's see what the etymology
So there you
of
go.
it
I
Cool.
thought you were going to say Gandalf then for a second.
yeah. Try fit that in your Wordle, you fuckers.
So, did you know that
Goddamn.
the word gander is actually related to the Dutch word gander?
I could have hazarded a guess, yeah.
Is that like the French word for garage? Which is garage.
Yeah. I think it's similar to that.
Actually, I think you find it's pronounced garage.
Depends what part of France you go to. Normandy, not so much. Just slagged off a whole nation.
Well, we've been recording for at least a minute. We need to.
Well, yeah.
At least
The thing about the French is, Paul, they've got nothing but good things to say about.
Oh. Someone's given me a request for. There you go. I mark this as a clip. We just put that out.
What the fuck was that?
That was one of Paul's spawn.
Yeah,
mainly the demon spawn one.
It's the Angry Gamer one. Yeah,
You're gonna have to narrow it down, Paul.
Yeah, he wants more time. So we've been battling COVID in our house for this last few days. Here we go.
And squeaky doors.
My good grief.
I know, yeah.
So-
You know what? I took out the Spectrum load-in and
Yeah,
introduced
yeah.
Coco. So that's just to balance it out.
Right.
So we've been battling COVID here. Don't hit your dad. See, they're both evil. They're both evil. They're both pacified by Wi-Fi. They've both got COVID, so they're both off school. Which is nice.
I see.
So back
So
to
I see the
home
fatigue
learning.
symptom of COVID isn't really taking hold.
Yeah, I detested
No.
it all.
Yeah. You more time. You've got all the time in the world.
Why didn't you think about giving them all this time? The time approximately equivalent to the duration of the podcast, I'd say I'd have recommended.
Well, yes, they should have more time, but they've kind of been using up by XP farming during lunch.
Right, I see. What is it they're playing, dare I ask?
Ted's playing Roblox at the minute, some kaiju universe. So he was very excited to announce today that his school has set in the homework of getting level 75 on this game.
Oh, is that so? Oh, that's a bold play, that. I mean, I'm not in charge of curriculums, and I probably shouldn't be. I wouldn't put that high among the priorities of the British societal system.
No, me neither. And Coco's currently playing with her dolls, so that's nice. She's done all her work for today, which is nice, yeah. So it's good. So Nick looks bored out of his brain during
I've
that
just got
talk.
absolutely no idea what any of those words you were just saying.
It's creating a kaiju in his Roblox and it's manifesting epidemiology inside a dodecahedron.
No idea.
Is that how I sound to you, Nick?
I just realised I slipped into like a faux knockoff Mark Steeler there, didn't I? Which is absolutely not
Stark
what
Miller.
Wilshaw sounds like. Yeah. What?
Stark Miller.
Stark Miller.
Yeah.
Hello
Stark
there,
Miller.
Stark Miller. You can buy
It's from the upside down.
my sockchists. Buy sockchists from All Good Stockists.
Sockchists. They're like for eating gravy cubes.
Gravy cubes. No, this is the next level of
I'm doing
innovation.
I'm doing the polar opposite version of Mark Steele.
Yeah. I approve.
Nice. Yeah.
Anyway, have we got an episode planned today, or
No, it's just this.
just the
Season
that's
4
fine with me, but
it's just chaos.
it's just
incarnate.
the internal monologues of three lunatics.
Yeah. Well, 3.5.
Unfettered by
our additional dramatis persona. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So if you do want to learn something about UX,
You've come to the wrong place.
We've got lots of insight coming up. You just fast forward us.
Yeah.
That should just take you to the sign off.
Yeah, that's it. Cut directly.
Yeah.
So do we have a topic for today then, gentlemen?
We do have a topic. I think a very poignant one with New Year's resolutions and things like that. Should designers code?
Dun, 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 dun.
The age-old question. Well, it's not that age-old. Yeah.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah.
Leafing through the Old Testament and happening upon should thou...
I don't know if you know the story of Job and how he had everything taken from him.
Yeah.
He was originally a designer with a significant code knowledge, and that was the first thing God took away from him. And the question we'll be addressing is how adrift was Job in those Old Testament times?
Yeah, it wasn't a whale. It was a basic markup handbook that he found so overwhelming he likened to being trapped in a giant aquatic mammal.
I think that's a interpretation. Yes.
alt text equals quote giant whale quote.
So, does anyone have any non-psychotic opinions on this? Then?
That is an ass. That is an ass.
That is
So
I guess, sorry, Matt, just to sort of set the actual parameters.
Let's set the scene.
Yeah, sort of set the parameters of the question. The question is, should designers code, right? Mm-hmm. Which is kind of like, is that different to? Well, it'd be beneficial if they did. It would possibly make you a more rounded designer. Is that a different question to should they? That seems like a binary yes or no sort of answer, which is probably not going to see us through 40 minutes of content.
No, I don't think we're going to go yes, yes, no, and thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my answer is yes. Mark?
Right, bye. That's the end of this episode.
Well,
that was the end of the new segment, Ask Nick a Question.
Oh, can we please can we do that?
I'm going to tangent off here onto the horrific format of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I flicked it over once, and there's now an option to ask Jeremy Clarkson.
Yes.
A question.
To fuck off.
Ask the house if they know the answer to the question. And I've only watched it once or twice for kind of like 10 minutes max. And both occasions he did not know the answer whatsoever. Yeah. So I'm just thinking, what an absolute shit waste.
I think what you should be able to do is you should be able to ring Chris Tarrant, the old host, and just see what he has to say.
That's my Chris Tarrant impression. Chris Tarrant here. Hello. Before the break, we were ringing Jeremy Clarkson.
I think that's accurate. It's not a thought. It's not a voice that really sticks in my mind.
That's it. That's 100% accurate, I can assure you.
So behind the scenes footage, they've got Chris Tarrant in the background, and when Jeremy Clarkson asks the question, he just coughs.
Yeah.
And then Jeremy Clarkson just...
then Jeremy Clarkson blows a car up and everyone laughs.
So go on then. If you could ask Jeremy Clarkson one question, what would it be?
Why?
That was
Why, Jeremy?
That was exactly the same question that I was going to ask. So I'm not going to even bother thinking up another one.
What's it all for, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think I'd ask him the age-old question, should he retire?
I think that's kind of the same question as why.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah. There's a few loopholes in why, though. I think.
But to go back to the topic at hand, should designers code? And to your question, Nick, as to what is the question in terms of its nature, I think it's a starting point. I think should is a very interesting way of phrasing it, and I think it's something that I would like to broach, because when I started off in my university career, I did a video game course, a very generic and ultimately not very good video game course. Perhaps because it was too generic, I then went on to specialise in digital art, and that was far more structured for me. That was at a different university. And we did a couple of programming classes there. So this was, I think it was in Engine, but I think it was in Unity. And I can't even remember which language it was in now. And it just never clicked with me. And I think it was the way it was taught. The teacher had the personality of a brick. And in fact, I think you'd have more fun sat across for a brick, and you'd probably learn more about coding as well. And so...
I hope they don't listen to this show. Oh, actually, I hope they do.
Well, they might revise their tactics when it comes to teaching eccentric teenagers how to code. But that's all you can really ask for.
I can just hear in the background they're tearing up your diploma as we speak.
Well, I only did the first 3 years at that uni, so it only says pass on it anyway. So that's the amount of qualification I got from it. But basically, it wasn't structured enough to give us any actual equipment to then go on and teach ourselves. And it just didn't click with me at all. It really turned me off the idea of coding full stop, because it gave me the impression that it was far more monolithic, far more impenetrable as a skill than perhaps it actually was. And so I went into graphic design following that. As I may have mentioned a few times in the past, I became a graphic designer for a signage company, an archaic signage company that started off hand painting signs. So by the time I joined, everyone had taught themselves Photoshop and Illustrator, which was a crazy experience. And so there was absolutely no code, just no consciousness that actually existed as a thing within this traditional sphere. And then, of course, I moved into user experience design, which is where it started to rear its head again. When I was applying for jobs, I was actually specifically applying for ones that didn't require any prior code knowledge, and that wouldn't be part of the day-to-day routine, simply because I'd become averse almost to it. Now, incidentally, I am doing a front-end development course in my spare time, which is incidentally being taught in Spanish, which is another layer.
Ridiculous. That is the most Mark Sutcliffe thing I've ever fucking heard in my life. I thought that coding was way too monolithic, so I've decided to take another crack at it in Spanish.
And funnily enough, it's actually sticking this time, which is the surprising thing.
So, wait a minute, just to go off on another tangent then, is code, if you're a developer in Spain and you're coding, do you code in Spanish?
You code in English. Your tags, American English, yeah. Your tags and stuff, your IDs, they can be in whatever language you like, but the syntax is all English, and the HTML editors.
So it really is a language then?
Yeah, in that sense, yeah. But it very much piggybacks off English syntax. And I found that one of the biggest difficulties I found trying to get over how difficult, and I don't mean learning Spanish. I'm not fluent in Spanish. There are English subtitles. Just so happens I found this course, and the trailer was really good. And
so that you're doing it in English with extra steps?
Basically, yeah. But I found... I don't know. I feel like I've just broken through the other side of it now. It's so complex and daunting that I've just made it so overwhelming that I've just given up and thought, well, fuck it. If it doesn't stick, it doesn't stick. And incidentally, it has done. But one of the most difficult things for me was knowing where to start with code. And for some reason, this Domestica course in Spanish is exactly the ticket.
Oh, Mark, you will have to share a link in this episode for this course, because this sounds like an absolute gem.
I just want to watch you doing it.
I am, for what it's worth, I do speak a little Spanish, so...
That's beneficial.
So, and I'm finding that I speak a lot more Spanish than I thought I did, which may be born out of necessity in this case.
If we wrote a comedy script, you just could not write this in. This would just be
if you wrote that in a comedy, people would say it was too unrealistic.
The fucking thing is, it's working. I've learned more about the structures of HTML and the decoration of CSS and the functions of JavaScript in 3 units of this course than I have in years of slamming my head against the wall that is trying to learn to code. And, it just took finding the right course. And, of course, it would be something that was ridiculously complex in terms of my requirements. But, yeah, it's good. It's going well.
Oh God, that's absolutely amazing, Mark.
So what is the reason you've decided to start learning to code again?
What started me off is don't really currently have a functional portfolio. I was using, and at the minute, I don't necessarily need one. I'm not especially looking for new opportunities, not with that kind of drive. I'm open to them, but I'm not actively searching.
You can contact Mark through our Twitter.
Just don't do it through LinkedIn, because that burning slag heap gets ignored. And
whereas Twitter is
Twitter. I love it. In fact, I wouldn't even know how people would contact me, because I just don't use social media at the moment.
I can only imagine they contact you through
Contact me and I'll get in touch with Mark.
Only accepting messages.
I'll send him a message on his beeper.
Time.
So I'm going to have to learn how to code and then at the same time learn how to speak Spanish, and so I can message Mark to tell him that he's got a job referral.
Exactly. But the main reason I wanted is because I don't currently have a portfolio. I was swinging round to my website was built on Wix, and I was swinging around to the renewal for the year, and all in all, for the domain name, the packages, and the email, is costing me about £200. And that just felt a bit superfluous to requirement. And furthermore, if I ever wanted to, act a side hustle, it was bothering me that
the episode of Resident Evil, which is filming in the background.
Just accidentally went on the soundboard classic creaky door sound effect there.
I didn't realise they recorded all the stock sounds from your home, Paul.
In Paul's house. There's going to be a Wilhelm scream in the background in a minute. I kind of realised as well, in fact, this is actually the biggest component. So the source of that frustration was my own website. But I discovered that a lot of my experience has been in web design. And I wasn't able to take that further, and I've been having discussions with a couple of people who've wanted very light touch websites, either portfolio based or very basic e-commerce or stuff like that. And I figured, well, if it's as easy as everyone I know who learned to code and never knows how to tell me why it's easy, or where to start, I've noticed. If they say it's that easy, then I want to give it another go, simply because it's diversifying that skill set. And that's kind of why I wanted to do it. My ambition, to keep it quite simple, is to make my own portfolio website. If I can make and maintain that, then I'll consider this skill taught, or learned, rather. So realistically then, how much do you need to know to achieve that goal? Do you need to finish an entire curriculum, or can you just learn the basics, or what?
The way I've done it is there are 2 courses that I've been looking at, both by the same Spanish guy.
I was gonna say there's one in Spanish, one in Icelandic.
No. But I do have 3 Swahili cooking courses lined up after this.
The Spanish course is designed to ease you in, and then the second one is in a long dead language.
Yes, yeah. The next course is in Latin. No one knows how it's pronounced. So they've got some Mayan expert to try and filter it through his understanding.
I'm going to run it through Mayan first.
Yeah. So the course I'm doing is a foundation course introducing HTML, CSS and JavaScript through the prism of responsive web design. And then there's another course which is about designing, which I already know, so I'll skip those bits. Designing, developing and deploying a website. So I was able to find, and so I was going to dive into that second course because in its title, it said exactly what my goal was and what it's been for a very long time. And I just hadn't found that in yet. And so I watched the trailer and it said it recommended some prior understanding to those 3 languages, I have a little bit of understanding simply because I've animated in CSS before and of my contacts with developers. But then it recommended a previous course, which was, again, this was all £15 a course. I thought, well, sod it. I spend that on 3 pints almost daily. So it's a worthwhile investment, as well as the old New Year, New Me bollocks. So,
brilliant.
That's good.
I like it.
Jeez. That literally was a Wilhelm scream in the background then.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
Sounds, yeah.
That was amazing. Like someone's filming a 1930s black and white western in your back garden. Yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me. It's interesting. I like it, and I like how you've come around to it and things like. I think I would say, do designers have to code? I'm going to say yes and no.
You can't do that, Paul.
Yeah, that's.
But it depends. I'd always say yes, but depends on kind of what you want to focus on, what you want to do. No, you don't have to. But at the same time, if you don't know about code, you don't know about semantics, you don't know about stuff like this. I was reading an article actually today. I'll have to dig it out and share it. And I thought, this is just, who's talking on this? It was just bollocks. But it was
as opposed to Faster Horses, a UX podcast.
Yeah. You could take this stuff to the bank.
Yeah, but that the article came from a very agency side and the agency who don't do the development either. So the agency just do design and hand it off to another agency to then develop it. And the whole,
yeah. I'm sure those.
Exactly. And I was thinking that the whole kind of like, you could have solved so many problems along the way if A, you knew about code, and B, you kind of spoke in the same language, and kind of what
Spanish,
and we and we spoke about this in the dribble effect episode, where kind of like you see these lovely animations and stuff like this, but actually a lot of this, although it could technically be built, the payoff of getting that through development into your app, into your website or whatever, would just be, 6 months of development would be never give a return on investment for that kind of amount of depth. So that's why I say yes or no. Depends kind of where you hand off your designs to, or where you want to hand off your designs to. And without knowing that code, and without knowing how it works and the structure and stuff like that, and kind of, accessibility, being rich in accessibility, we talk a lot about accessibility. And if I didn't know how to code accessible, a lot of the stuff I would try and put into accessible design would just fall flat. But I know I can do a bit of, testing, and I can say, I can get kind of, I did it the other day, my accessibility reader, and I was getting like, oh, wait a minute, this doesn't read out, this doesn't make sense, and things like that. And without knowing that stuff, it makes it very hard for your design to be fit for product or fit for audience. And you can design anything to kind of like, you can make it absolutely beautiful. But if you're designing a house with no front door, you have to climb in the window every day. It's not, that's not going to be a really useful house, is it? And that's kind of what I think I think with design, you have to kind of like, you have to have part kind of product. There's more Resident Evil filming in the background going on. I think you have to kind of like part product knowledge, part kind of like where your kind of your audience lies. You've got to have part development knowledge and kind of where you're, could it actually be built? Could it be built in time? Can you iterate on it? Can you kind of then develop it, get feedback? We talk about getting fast feedback, we kind of, oh God, it's all going on, isn't it? Crazy.
It's almost like doing it on purpose.
I know, yeah. We've got 2 dogs running around now, kind of like going around in circles through the house.
That's what you get for buying a circular house, Paul.
Yeah, that's it.
I know. Yeah, with no doors.
Just live in one big corridor.
Yeah. So yeah, without knowing those things, then you're inevitably not going to make as good a product as you could.
Yeah. I agree with that.
On my flip side, there's quite a few new tools that are coming out that bypass kind of like the product, the development side. So I was playing around with one called Play, and it's a mobile app designed to make mobile apps, which is really interesting.
Every time I've seen one of these solutions where they're like, you don't need to know code. You always need to know code at some point. There comes a point that it just pushes the code further down like the assembly line, but there comes a point in time where you need to know code to implement it.
Well, and this is where we get this kind of like, I think where we are now, we get into this kind of very template, and even kind of like, kind of a lot of agencies that, you can buy a template and kind of like 90% of the work's done for you. And you can just edit that template and kind of hack away at it. And then that's why a lot of websites now become very boilerplate and very kind of samey. And you kind of see this a lot because it's kind of easier to churn this stuff out. And because it's kind of like, you can do those low to no code solutions that just, it's got that same animation on because someone ripped it off from Apple 11 in the background.
It's just an absolute fucking cacophony of...
It's like a Foley recording studio right in front of you.
It's like you live in the sound effects booth at Looney Tunes.
I wish I did.
It's literally incredible. Like, you couldn't have a bigger variety of more frequent noises if you were doing it on purpose. If you sat there with like a Fisher-Price keyboard and poor impulse control, there'd be less shit going on in the background.
I should record them. I should record all these sound effects and put them on some royalty-free.
Well, yeah. I don't know. Milk that for all the cash you can.
Yeah,
double the royalties on it. But I see what you're saying regarding the. I think you're both right, essentially.
I hadn't said anything.
No, you had about you pushing it down the chords.
Oh, right, sorry.
Pipeline.
Yeah.
See, I'm listening. Because I had the same experience, and it was actually one of the reasons I wanted to move away from Wix or other website builders do exist. This is just the one I'm using. They're all of an ilk, so I've heard. But that was because whilst the editor at Wix was surprisingly in depth, there are 3 layers. You've got your really basic stuff. You've got your more advanced controls, and then you have got your full code editor. I was quite in depth in the advanced editor, so I was able to get good animations, timed animations, quite sophisticated links, and timed functionality like that. But it was slow, ultimately. It felt quite heavy. It didn't feel particularly well optimized for what was essentially, tantamount to a few lines of CSS. So I wanted to move away from that because I think when you are in something that using a third-party tool, you are beholden to their conversions and their ways of approaching it, and there are often more than one way to skin a cat with this stuff. So I think that becomes significant.
I was expecting a little bit more on the end there, Mark.
I was
very
just
nicely
surprised
put.
that Mark stopped speaking and there was silence,
I know.
which was as
I
welcome
can try
as
and
it
give
was
you more
surprising.
if you want. I didn't realise that's how this worked.
There was no like ancient gong in about. Oh, there we go.
Very good.
In the meantime, squeezing the mental toothpaste tube that is my my efforts with these things.
Yeah, I think the whole I don't know if I agree with the phrasing of the question. So I don't know if you should. Like, it's not gonna. Like, no one should be turned down for being a designer because they can't code, right? But if you take it upon yourself to learn some code, you're just going to be better all round as a designer, and you're going to have better relationships with the people in the business whose job it is typically to do that stuff, and you're just going to understand what they're saying more as well. But to like the point that Paul was making about sort of building better stuff and accessibility, if you've got a knowledge and an appreciation of code, then that helps you build more accessible stuff because you know about semantic HTML, and therefore your screen readers are going to work better and your tagging is going to be better and stuff like that. So that all falls under the header of code. And so therefore, yeah, you should probably know it. But if you don't know it, you shouldn't be held up, like in front of a firing squad or anything. It's not an either or. I just think if you strive to be better, it's one of the things that you should investigate and learn as much as you can, and just gain a knowledge of. Even if you don't know how to code, you need to know what people mean when they say certain things, like what they mean when they say semantic HTML or various coding languages, what people are using to execute whatever functions and stuff. I think it just makes you an all round better designer.
I think you're right. We talk about quite often on this kind of like a shared design language, but I think having a shared language that cuts across everything, so that whether you're talking to an end user, whether you're talking to a developer, everybody understands what that thing is and what that thing does. And sometimes the naming of things, I was in one the other day, is it a card? Is it a pod? Is it something else? Is it a button? Is it an image with like a link on? Kind of like, but actually it's the same component underneath that does all these things. You can just customize it to whatever the content is and whatever the function is. But you have to kind of like say that what it is, so that when we talk about those things to anybody, simply, we're not making things twice. We can then go, oh, this card or pod or whatever, block, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to slice in kind of how Brad Frost does it. He does the atoms, the molecules, organisms, pages and templates and things like that. And like, I kind of like that naming because it gives you a bit of structure and form, but I don't like it because it's so abstract.
Yeah,
it's kind of
we're just creating a new design system now, and that's something we noticed pretty quick, is that this is not intended to be the naming convention. It's more a way of thinking that you need to adopt.
Yes. Yeah.
And you shouldn't carry those through to actual terminology.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that comes from developers as well, and they push kind of like, this div is called this, and that then becomes, well, actually it's not though, kind of like it's a bit more customizable. How's that, and then you give that to a copywriter and they've got to understand the use of that and how to use it the same way as like you've designed it, you've kind of developed it, and kind of how the CMS works, how the end user sees it, and all those things tie in together. That there's that common language between knowing what code is and what code isn't.
If you're a designer and you're like if, for example, I'm sort of leading the design system stuff, and if you're not familiar with the terminology that the devs are using when they're asking certain things or running certain things by you, you'll miss like the opportunity to feedback or adjust or correct things because you just didn't realise literally what was being asked at the time because you're not familiar with the terminology.
Definitely. Also, you can put it into, like, I was thinking of a few analogies of this earlier, and I was kind of thinking, like, it's the same if you learn to drive a car with an automatic gearbox. That means you can never drive a car with a manual gearbox unless you take your test again and learn how to do that. So it's those kind of things. So if you want to drive an automatic car, then you don't need to learn code. If you want to drive a manual car, then probably you need to learn code. And that's kind of like fits quite fucking Resident Evil again.
God.
Paul's becoming a shadow of his former self. Informer self.
I know.
So we've got the sounds, sounds of Paul Wilshaw, the susurrations of the House of Wilshaw, and Nick just losing the faculty of speech altogether. It know him good. Well, welcome to the Mark Sutcliffe podcast. I'll be speaking to myself and my myriad voices. Anyway, thank you. Lovely to be here for the remainder of the show, so we don't need to suffer through the rest of this bollocks.
In both English and Spanish.
Just to go off on a tangent, I was editing.
No. Sorry, we can't do that.
No.
Let's see where this goes.
Oh no, yeah. I was listening to we've recorded a new intro, and we recorded it all on separate tracks, and it's so weird when you listen to one track without the other people.
Yeah,
and then it becomes like, oh, I sound a little unhinged.
Context
when
is
it's
everything.
on multiple tracks like that as well, that it's so tempting to like edit yourself to get the best version of yourself across as well.
Yeah.
Need to remove all my ums and ahs from this. So I sound
exactly.
incredibly
Exactly that. Yeah, and like I stutter quite a bit when I talk as well.
Oh, you don't. But it was, I know, I kind of listened to it and I kind of thought, God, if I put this out as kind of like, I sound like a real weirdo.
That's kind of tacitly what we've agreed to, though. That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
To go back to what you were saying, what both of you were touching on was, as we often do, talking about how UX fits into a wider ecosystem of design, development, software creation and deployment, etc., etc. And I think that's what it comes down to for me and in my career, because I started without any coding knowledge in UX. So there's a living testament to answer one question is, do you have to? No, you don't, because I didn't. I understand, Nick, you had little to no code experience when you got into UX as well. Yeah. But doing that, you do throw yourself in the deep end because you're still having to engage with an ecosystem that is inevitably fluent in this kind of language, in this kind of terminology. So I think if you do go in and say, right, I don't want to code, I'm going to be a more illustration or design focused UXer. I think that is a very possible line of inquiry as a career, especially as things start to diversify and become more specific. But I think you'll end up throwing yourself in the deep end because you'll need to learn. And what I did is I kind of picked up a lot of it along the way, and I'm finding out how much I picked up along the way whilst I do these courses. But I think if you were to do that prior and you take the time to do a bit of self-educating or to do something else pertaining towards it, then when you go into that ecosystem, you'll slot in far more organically. You'll be able to assist with processes and define processes you otherwise weren't able to because you'd just be better informed.
Yeah, I think it just makes you a better designer. The more you know, the better you're going to be, and that's as simple as it is. You can focus on one thing, like you said, Mark, illustration, and put all your time and effort into doing that, and you may one day become like, I mean, depending on what your end goal is, successful or well known for being an illustrator. But if you put as much time as possible into all aspects of your job, which is like illustration, the UX consideration, code, and then, even things like soft skills, like the management side of it and dealing with people and stuff, you open up more avenues for yourself to become a success and to appear on people's radars and stuff like that. So if your goal is to succeed as a designer and move yourself even incrementally further down the line of like achievement or development or whatever it is, then it should be something that you look at learning, even to whatever level. Some appreciation, some knowledge of code or anything other than what you know already is going to be beneficial for you and probably the team and the business that you're working for.
Yeah.
I agree. I think because I think a lot of people now are transitioning from traditional graphic design to digital design. You kind of see that in the jobs market. And I think we've spoke about this in the past. Kind of like you don't see really jobs for graphic designers anymore. You see jobs for product designers or UX designers or a myriad of whatever comes under UX. But you very rarely see a pure graphic design job. But I think if you're transitioning over, kind of like if you were a graphic designer or still are a graphic designer, shitloads about colours, loads about printing, loads about, physical manifestations of that and all those details and, how paper works and the thickness and the quality and how it folds and UV spots and things like that work really well, and your knowledge of that, kind of like makes or breaks a print job. Exactly the same with your, UX. It kind of like your level of understanding of the code or what the product is actually made of, goes tenfold to making you a better designer. And I think sometimes when people say, I don't need to code or I don't need to have any knowledge of that because the devs have got it, is a bit blinkered, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, one thing I want to say, and I feel it would be remiss not to say, is something I've said in previous podcasts a couple of times. Developers are designers. Mm. And we're talking here like there's designers and developers. Developers are designers, and I think it's important to say that and point that out and like start pushing that like narrative, that idea that they are designers and should be regarded as such. So it's not so much should designers learn how to code. It's if you don't know how to code and you are a designer, is it time to start learning? Mm.
Yeah, I like that.
And the answer is yes.
I like that. I think one thing I want to add to this is those who are in more leadership-based positions, those who are controlling budget, in looking at training, I think that is probably one of the best kind of audits you can do of your team. One of the best kind of audits you can do of your team.
What's funny there?
Someone coughed all over me. That's what it was.
Yeah, sorry. So I went to press the mute button on my microphone and did a big cough, and then looked down and realised I'd not pressed mute.
It was your expression as you realised what you'd done. I think that made me laugh.
Yeah. I did visibly like. I oversold it so that viewers would know that I didn't do that on purpose.
Right, we'll fix it in post.
What's the win?
The Royal Paul.
The Royal Paul, yes. If you've done that team audit and you're wondering how to kind of take your team to the next level, or to a better way to put it, because a terminology like that is a bit vague, more importantly to increase the maturity of UX within your organisation, is to, I think, look at skills like this, look at coding, keep it obviously relevant to your product keep it relevant to user experience design and the user side of your product. But what you'll find then is that those UX designers are able to have more meaningful relationships, more meaningful discourse and contributions to processes than if they were just designers. And if they are just designers who don't know how to code, of course, as we've been mentioning, that additional layer of translation that it needs to go through, that additional layer of understanding. I think if you want to help increase maturity within an organisation, UX maturity, it's not just about a organisation needing to know about UX, it's also about UX designers understanding every step of a process and working so closely with front-end developers. UI developers, I think one of the best skills we can learn is to code.
Yeah, I think as like part of being a UX designer is looking at entire journeys holistically and figuring out the best way to like interact with them. You should be doing that in your own journey, at work as well. The best way to interact with the people next down the line from you is to figure out how to talk to them and build a relationship with them.
Yeah, I would say though, it's.
I would say though.
Like Monday at 4 o'clock is a slot for this, is it?
No, Friday's better when they're worn down through the week a little bit.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
I know.
Friday afternoon is this a dagger I see before me?
Alas, poor Yorick.
I'd also say as well that it's not a one-way street as well. It's I think your job as a UX designer is to engage people, and as you say, everybody's designer, not just developers, not just UX designers, and being exclusive about it is you start then to form barriers and exclusivity and stuff like that, and everybody hates that exclusivity, and
it
then
just builds that us and them mentality, doesn't it? If you
yeah, and kind of like, and then you become as well. If you build that culture as well, you become then a kind of a funnel for everything, and then you're not being a good designer, you're being
bottleneck,
a blocker for kind of work to go through, because you go, I've got to see that, I've got to make every little detail, I've got to see that check and things like that. But actually, if you widely distribute design across, and that's not saying everybody should be able to line up pixels perfectly, and you don't need to have UX people or designers. You definitely need those people to formalize those things, but they don't go making automated cars and go like, oh, you can only drive this if you know how to drive an automatic car. They don't design that. They drive it for absolutely everybody to use. And the same with design. You should make it that so everybody can use design. And it's not just, you may have to do all the hard work for them, kind of laying out the blocks and stuff like that, laying out the patterns, putting the best practices
that's fundamentally, or one of the fundamental parts of a design system within an organisation, isn't it? Sure, it's consistent for the end user, and there's an experiential point of view, a huge experiential component. But a significant part of a good design system is that everybody who encounters it is able to understand it within the context of that company. So your product owners, your customer service people, your marketing people, your brand people, your management, and in fact, more importantly, perhaps the executive layer as you go up becomes their knowledge, their understanding, their ability to understand becomes more important.
I was on mute then because I think Jill Valentine just died.
Eaten by a giant snake. or turned into a Jill sandwich.
Yeah, I was about to do that.
Oh,
You're nearly a Jill sandwich. Thank you.
Right. I'm looking at the time. Is it time?
Yeah. Just one last thing before we move on. How do people, if you want to get into code, what should people do?
Read a fucking book.
I'd say the best way to do code would be to go into the developer tools on Chrome, Safari, whatever your choice is. Have a poke around there.
I don't think that is good advice.
Oh,
Because that is the advice I've received for years and never knew where to start because I didn't know what I was looking at.
I suppose.
So one thing I like to do, and it kind of revealed a whole world of the internet I didn't realise was there, is go on to like a website that peddles absolute trash, like maybe the Sun's website. And if you go onto the Sun's website and you go to developer tools, there's a panel in there where you can change headlines on the web page by typing in whatever you want and then taking screen grabs and sending them to people as if these were real articles on Sun's newspaper, which is what I like to do. And that revealed a whole, like I say, other side of the internet that I didn't realise was there behind developer tools. That's a fun way to start.
Yeah, I think so.
And then you can start downloading and taking images. Another way I found out about how to use developer tools and stuff like that was there used to be a website. I can't actually remember what it was called now, but it basically collated blogs people had written into one place about songs, and it pulled in that song so you could like listen to it and then read the review. But it was really handy for illegally downloading music. if you opened up the developer tools, it showed you the source of the song that was being pulled in, and you could download it as an MP3. And that's another way that I sort of found out.
Yeah, I've done that to get a hold of quite a lot of images. Like if something's trying to stop you from seeing the full size image, go to the source
or downloading it.
Not so many people are aware of that. I've got jumped through quite a few little situations like that. By the way, I wasn't just going to say that's terrible advice and mic drop the fuck out of here. I do have a counterpoint, which is the reason I think that it's not. I don't think it's terrible advice, but I think why it's not necessarily the place to start is because it's not necessarily constructed. It's not got this. There's no framework to it. Now, this is perhaps just more about how I learn. I know some people do learn better just by talking about. But I think one thing you should do is set yourself an objective. So for me, that is building and deploying a portfolio website. I know what that needs to contain because I know my own work. A bit of animation, a few pages. Nothing that is overwhelming. If your goal is to dick about with headlines on the Sun, I think that is a perfectly valid goal. But the point is you have something in mind there, and that'll help direct your searches. It'll help you find specific courses and specific people who can help you as well. Because very often when I've said to people in the past, I want to know how to get into code, they've said, oh, well, learn a bit of HTML, learn a bit of CSS, learn a bit of JavaScript. And it's like, go on.
Oh, yeah. Is that all?
So
to sum that point up in a soundbite, my friend once gave me a very good piece of advice once, Jimmy Osang. He said, you don't learn to play the guitar, you learn how to play Wonderwall.
Yes.
And basically figure out what you want to do and then figure out how to do that and then do the next thing. You learn by necessity, basically, which is how I learned how to like illustrate and animate.
The next step.
I just had an idea and then I realised I need to know how to achieve this effect. And then I went away and I learned how to do it.
Yeah. What I was going to add before you shot me down in flames, Mark, was...
Sorry, bitch.
was like steal off stuff.
Oh yeah,
kind of like what go into those developer tools and kind of like. But I totally have a goal of what you want to do, and I got into development because I wanted to make little online games. So I learned how to make Pac-Man and shit like that, and Flash when that was a thing.
That stealing comment, that's a really interesting one because I actually did this for one of my university submissions, I didn't steal for that. I didn't just plagiarise work.
Totally ripping that to
I'm
play
really
with.
fucking over my university work here, aren't I? No, I did. I wanted to be an environment artist. That dream still exists somewhere in the recesses of my subconscious. But what I did for that, I did this kind of Japanese. It was just a corridor from a Japanese monastery. Or Japanese monastery-inspired corridor. And I managed to steal, open source, so borrow, the AI for butterflies. And what I did, I realised that these butterflies were able to land on surfaces without being programmed specifically, stuff like that. So I was able to lift that from the open source project into my own, and I tweaked that so that the textures of the butterflies were different, and so because they were actually like mechanical insects in the original, so I wanted them normal, and so I was able to do that. And in doing so in Unreal, I opened up the blueprints and was able to have a poke around. And if I'd have continued poking around, that would be one way I think I would have been able to say, right, I've got this. How do I take this to the next step? And what do I need to put into Google to find out?
There you go.
Good advice.
Definitely. Good. Yeah. Nice.
Fire it up, Paul.
I love that dead air. That's what I'm here for.
So, to anyone listening to that awful pained silence, we've set up for Series 4, we've set up a soundboard so we can trigger all the intros, outros, everything live whilst we're sat here. And we just need to work on being a bit more organic about it, really.
Well,
I don't know.
I just thought you were going to say something more profound at the end there. You were going to round it up
me?
or something.
If you,
Yeah.
Paul, if you're waiting for me to say something profound, you're going to be waiting a long time, and there's going to be a lot of dead air. So
Let's have a bit of dead air waiting for it. No dead air.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, such thing. Shall we have a profound sound bite? Let's see.
Yeah, shall we?
I'm just going to find one.
I was just going to say the postman always rings twice.
That's not true.
Is that not? Is it the name of the
It doesn't fucking ring at
tell you,
all. If
the
he's
postman
my
at
postman.
our house
Yeah.
doesn't even ring once. He just leaves shit in the garden.
No.
That might be a dog that you're thinking of.
Well, I mean, when you need to go, you need to go, don't you? And the fact that it's AstroTurf shouldn't stop him.
Okay, I've got a profound soundbite from an essay on Zen Buddhism I was reading, because of course.
Oh, this fits in nicely to the episode. Go on.
I think
in
it
Spanish,
does,
so.
it does. When it comes to whether you want to go into code or not, walk or sit as you will, but do not stand irresolute.
Ooh, very
Are we going to get
It
like
doesn't
an
actually.
explanation of that, or do we just
No,
move on
that's
to the
Zen
UX
Buddhism.
Tombola?
No, you don't get a fucking explanation for anything.
Okay.
Missing the
You
point
just
if
sit
you-
there and go,
You just sit there and yeah. And to say you were learning to code by doing that.
Yeah. So what's the time? Let's fire up the jingle.
That sound means it's time for UX Tombola, the segment of the show where we pick a random product, object, service or place from the Tombola machine and discuss its terrible or great UX.
Spin the wheel, Nick.
Jesus, that's all
Oh
over the
my
place,
God.
isn't it?
At the beginning of that, you sound like about 5-10 seconds in, you sound like you've received some very bad news over WhatsApp from somebody.
It sounds like I came in like super hot, and then
Then
it's
someone
just
told
like,
you you've been fired.
yeah, Drew's held up like a whiteboard with cat dead on it or something, and then now I'm just trying to make it to the end of the show.
I love it. That's perfect.
Should probably tweak that. Like my yeah.
Would you care to reach into the machine today, Nick?
I will, but I'll have to be very careful for the sharp teeth on the machine. On the thing.
Yeah.
Right. So today's UX Tombola subject, which we need to burn through as quickly as possible, is the UX of a hat.
Oh,
Right.
I should have given you a drum roll. Should we do that again? The UX of
Hat.
Love it. Beautiful, beautiful. What a quality production.
Is now a good time to tell people that they can give us money on Patreon. Because
We're not begging.
we fucking need it. Oh, please give us enough to hire a producer.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's just to fire the current one. Would you say you guys are hat people?
I'm very much a hat person. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a number of hats.
I'm not sure I suit. I love hats, but I'm not sure. Every time I wear a hat, I think, "Oh, who's this dick?"
I always think that whether you're wearing a hat or not, Paul.
I was kind of waiting for that.
You set them up, and I'll knock them out of the park. I'm here all week. Try the fish.
I think I am a hat person by and large. I am an astute observer of hat etiquette, something I realise the modern populace certainly is not. And this gives me more reason to hate you all, which I do. Because there's quite a lot of unwritten rules around good hat etiquette.
Never, ever wear a bowler hat on a patio.
Well, no,
sorry.
But apart from the obvious one, Nick, there is a big one. You're not meant to wear a hat inside.
I do.
And I think I'm willing to move on this one, but there is one that I'm not. One thing that I think isn't very nice that some people do, and that's wearing a hat whilst at a dining table.
Yeah, I do that too.
Ooh.
I think that is very poor form, and it's especially bad. I mean, it's all right. I think if you're wearing a beanie, then I mean it's basically flat against your head anyway. But if you're wearing anything like, I remember seeing some meme once, and it was a guy at a steak restaurant, and he just looked like such a prick because he insisted on wearing a fedora at the dining table. It's just like,
there's no reason to wear a fedora anywhere.
Exactly.
Ever.
Unless you are 1920s press, there is no reason to wear a fedora.
Unless you rush into a telephone booth to phone back the hot story of the day to the newsroom. There's absolutely no reason to be wearing a fedora.
I do have, incidentally, within my reach, a top hat and a bowler hat. But
old Marky Two Hats, we call him.
Yeah. Oh, Marky Two Hats.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got two hats.
I mean, within my reach, I've got about 72 hats, but I'm not going to show you.
Well, this is an audio format.
So it was my birthday this month, about 2 weeks ago, and at the weekend, me and Drew went shopping. So what I like to do sometimes on my birthday is we just get up and we have like a nice breakfast, and then just go shopping. And if I see something I like, I'll generally buy it as long as it's not like a jet ski or something. I can actually afford it. But if it's something I like and and it's very me, I'll kind of put price to the back of my mind and just be like, I'm just going to get that and not worry about it. And on my birthday, we went to a designer outlet and they had a Versace shop. We walked in there and Versace is very like, it's way over. It's very, I don't want to sound like a dick when I say this, but it's very me. It's very sort of gaudy and intentionally. Well, I don't know if it's supposed to be awful, but it is. And
I don't think it can sound like like conceited if you say it's very me and then describe it as gaudy and looking like shit.
But it's very all right. But
so we went quite negative to yourself there.
No, but I hadn't got that far at the time, so it was. Versace's "Very Me" was the start of that sentence,
right,
so I felt I had to clarify it. So we went in and we were looking around, and there was like silk dressing gowns and all that stuff. And I kind of turned to the side, and there was what Drew described as the most Nick Tomlinson hat ever, which was a bright orange. Bubble, like bubble coats are made out of that material, and they're stuffed with like padding. Yeah. It was that, so it was like a bubble coat style hat, so it was filled with padding, and it had like pleats in it, and it was made out of that stuff. Bright orange with a Versace badge on the front of it, and 2 ear flaps that fasten under the chin. So me and Drew just looked at each other immediately, and I took it to the counter and bought it.
Cara, is it rude to ask how much that set you back?
No, not at all. So it was
okay. Okay, no, unless you're about to have an asthma attack. That husky sound.
So bearing in mind, I'd made painstaking attempt to clarify at the start of this. I don't when I see something.
No, that's clear. That's clear. You're still going to be judged accordingly.
which is my only excuse. It was £155.
Oh. That is significantly more expensive than the grey top hat I'm not going to show you that I have just out of reach. But, I mean, granted, if I wanted to get myself a bespoke-made bowler hat from a popular shop, I say popular for this kind of thing, shop in London, it would set me back about £400. So, I
mean, in terms of Versace clothing, I feel like £155 is pretty good, and like certainly in terms of like bespoke felted hats from a hattery.
Yeah, from a milliner,
Sorry,
I think I might have said that wrong first. I think it's a miller. Yeah.
Sorry, I should have known due to the well-known children's character, the Mad Milliner.
Look. You've hung around with me long enough now to have got this understanding in the same way I've understood code through osmosis within the UX context. There's a callback.
In Spanish.
See. So.
That's Spanish for we.
How often are you wearing this hat then?
Every opportunity. But, there are very few.
I was going to say, I wear my grey top hat at every opportunity, but the opportunity to wear a grey top hat is surprisingly
infrequent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been very cold and windy, so there is the opportunity to wear it quite a lot. I wear it in a house fairly often, but I have definitely
eating on the patio.
Yeah, exclusively on the patio. Yeah, I worn it to the co-op. I'm the best dressed gent at the co-op where I live. I can tell you that.
Unless I'm visiting, yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
What? What? Actually, I've been to that co-op. Yeah, jeez.
It's very common.
When it comes to
it's easy to be a dressing gown.
Well, yeah. When it comes to the UX of hats, though, do we need to be more specific about what of the UX of a hat?
What is that noise?
Yes.
Wind chime.
That noise sounds like Ted's getting a wish granted every 5 minutes.
How do you know he isn't?
Well, we don't. We want clarity on that situation.
The fact that your house isn't being trampled by elephants is probably a good indicator.
I think.
Yeah.
It's I think it's the genie finishes its shift about 6.
Incidentally, when we'll probably finish this call. Yeah.
The genie's frantically wishing this at end.
I'm the genie.
Our listeners are the genie.
Yeah.
They do have that power. We just don't like to readily advertise that they can pause and do anything else at any other time. at this time.
Oh, that was a good episode. I listened to that for 3 minutes. Oh God, I've channeled
He
a
did,
bit.
though. He's here. So, what of the UX of a hat do we want to fit? I think
it's
that was it. Therefore, I am.
I think therefore I am. I do not think therefore I not am.
I mean, this is a massive because like hats come in all shapes and sizes,
Well,
so you can have kind of like.
I think if you're talking about the UX of hats, whoever came up with hats pretty much nailed it on the first try, didn't they?
Probably, yeah. Well, probably not the first try, because that's probably like a sheep's intestine that they shove their head into.
Oh, like they made a sock or something.
It's too big.
It's turned into a very lucrative sideline.
So, can I ask you a hat-related question?
Please. I wish you would.
If you were left in a room with a tea cosy, how long would it take before you put it onto your head?
I mean, you're assuming that I would wait until I was left alone. There's no point in putting a tea cosy on your head if there's no one there to laugh at it, is there? I'd immediately.
I don't know.
So, Nick, the man in the white coat is stood there. And he's like, "So, Nick, we're going to put a tea cosy on the table in front of you." And no, go on, carry on. You were saying.
So
there's oh God, yeah. Have you never tried this, Mark?
Putting a tea cosy on?
Never tried. Yeah.
To be honest,
on your head.
Yeah.
Not since I last encountered a tea cosy, which was quite a while ago. Yeah.
What was that for? To keep the tea warm?
That's what it's meant to do. It's an extra layer of insulation on your teapot, which I always find a superfluous requirement when I'm drinking tea.
I mean, surely the scalding hot water keeps the tea warm.
For a time, yes. yeah. Generally.
It's I think it was when it was a real effort to make fire.
Yeah. The tea cosy predated
electric kettles.
But when the only pastime was knitting, you needed every excuse you could get to knit something, didn't you?
Everyone in your local community was wearing fully knitted jumpsuits and
all the chickens outside have got little hats on. There's nothing left to do but knit a coat for the teapot.
I want that soundbite.
I go at the front of the show, can't I?
I did see an interesting performance. It was a clown performance outside of this show, incidentally.
An interesting clown performance.
Yeah. Well, it was.
Can't wait to
I was at a
it.
burlesque show on New Year's Eve, which is a story for another time. And there was a variety of acts on, and one was a very talented clown. And what he did was he had a ring of felt, just like a hoop of felt, if you will, and he turned that on stage into about 15 different kinds of hats, and went around.
Was he a Milner by any chance?
It wasn't, no. But I did ask him if he considered the line of work and told him I'd pay £400 for a top hat.
I think I can only imagine his actors got budget cuts, and he used to have lots
Previously,
of hats.
it was just a man putting different hats on. But as the budget cuts came, he had to get more and more innovative, and essentially ended up with a ring of felt, which he then used to turn into many different ones. So what?
Just stick a
that's
badge
it,
on it and sell it to Nick.
I'll buy it.
My point here was exactly because he managed to turn it into what's the name of the the headpiece of a nun's outfit?
Habit.
Is it the habit?
Habit. Yes.
He managed to turn it into a bicorn hat. He managed to turn it into a cowboy hat. He managed to take all these different things he managed to do. And I think that's what we should sell. I think that's what we should give to Mark Steeler. As you said, there are so many different kinds of hats. We kind of need a one-fits-all solution.
So,
like
please, can I just request that when you're doing when the evil spirit known as Mark Steeler inhabits your earthly body, and you're doing the advert, can you please make a joke about something like, "I want to start making hats, but I don't want to make a habit out of it," or something like that?
All right. Okay.
There we go.
I can see what I can do. I'll see. I'll see what happens when the corporeal
Summoned in for.
of yeah. I'm just gonna have to get out a Ouija board and communicate with him. Because he's dead.
Plot twist. It was Bruce Willis all along.
I'll have to re-edit the fucking intro now.
I know, yeah.
I'm Mark Steeler and I'm a ghost. But you won't find that out until Series 4, Episode 1.
Yeah. That's the twist. So is that the product we're going for? I mean, it's the one suggestion.
Yeah.
And everyone.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Are we
sold? I'll give you £155 for it, Mark.
Yeah, I wonder what Mark Steeler's brand. If he had a designer brand, what would it be called? Like, I think it would be so close to a knockoff, or so close to something that is definitely not a designer brand, but Mark Steeler's convinced that it is.
Like Marks and Spencer's.
Yeah, Texo. He's called it.
And the good stuff. Mark Porhom.
Steelers Porhom.
Just with not even a threat of a French accent in there.
Yeah.
Steelers Porhom. It's French, so you know it's good. Bonjour. Badly made.
I'm Mark Steeler, and I've got for you today a new special product. Have you got within reach of you at any time 72 hats? No, most of us haven't. Can you not afford to spread your hat budget to cover all of your hat-based needs? Well, I've got the solution for you. If you are a cowboy with a need for a hat, if you are a fedora boy, the 1920s, if you are a nun with a bad habit, then I've got the product for you from Steeler Porhom. It is the Swiss Army hat, as employed by none of the Swiss Army, the Swiss Army as we now call them. And it is a circle of felt you put on your head and pretend it's any hat you want. Thank you. That's £155. Love, Mark Steeler. Mwah.
I'll take it.
Oh God, absolutely amazing.
There you go. I think that was a bit less sad than his usual delivery.
Oh no, I love it.
I mean, yeah, you had to get all the
this
detail
is it.
in there.
I had the nun with a bad habit line, and then everything I came around it was just, are you a man with a hat? Or are you another man with a hat?
Are you a Trilby boy?
Are you a Trilby boy?
Just had no idea. Pressman, journalist. Journalist is what I was looking for.
Or a news, I thought you meant like a newsie, like a newspaper boy.
That's
Read all about it. The little newsie cap on.
Newspaper.
I love how that kind of quite quickly turned into whose line is it anyway? Where I gave you like you've got to say a bad habit, and then I typed into the chat Swiss Army hat as well. We should do that next time. Turn it into like whose line is it anyway?
Yeah. Just see what I can get in there.
You can go head to head with Greg Proops.
I've had a dream like that.
How is your head, Mark?
Well, I've not had any complaints.
Boom, boom. Do it.
Oh dear, I can't. Yeah,
fast enough.
if I gave it to you on the dot, it'd just
be funny,
It wouldn't be.
It wouldn't be.
Anyone can do a rim shot immediately after something funny's happened. The real connoisseurs wait an inordinate amount of time, and then the rim shot comes, and then and then they've got to figure out what was the funny thing that was said.
Leave it long enough that they start thinking of other things and they start doing other things.
Leave it long enough that they start to think, maybe that wasn't funny.
That wasn't really a joke.
Which they were probably thinking in the first instance anyway.
Yeah.
Just say rim shot again, Nick.
Rim shot.
Oh, I feel dirty.
Me too. Amazing.
I've now got to go and contact this
it,
friend I didn't know we'd stolen his idea. Which is a sentence I didn't think I'd have to say again today.
That can go on, that could be another soundbite for the episode.
Have we done?
Take us home, Paul.
Take it home. Here we go.
Well, that's it for this episode of Faster Horses. If you like the show, please like, subscribe and leave a review. It really does help. You can join us on patreon.com/Faster Horses from £1 a month for more chat, UX Tombola and the hottest new products from Bolton Arcade's own Mark Steeler. Special thanks to James Med for our theme tune. I'm Mark Sutcliffe.
I'm Nick Tomlinson.
I'm Paul Wilshaw.
Follow us on Twitter at Faster Horses UX and we'll catch you in 2 weeks for more Faster Horses.
Did the juggler in the background drop all the silverware?
Yeah, I was going to say. You currently got a thief who's not doing a very good job of it.
So, while I was playing that clown came around, rang the doorbell, and demanded royalties straight away.
And he paid him in silverware by throwing the cutlery he brought him.
And then he threw it to the ground like
This is not silverware. No.
like biting each one, bending it in his teeth.
No. No. Oh, that's a good one. No.
Oh.
I love how the clown sounds like
Everyone sounds like Mark Steeler.
So he's the people's person, is Mark Steeler.
It's just the voices in my head all sound the same. They can get quite confusing sometimes.
I think the sound is actually the voice of the Jungian collective unconscious, and that's why every single voice in Faster Horses
It's Mark Steeler.
All right.
That voice that you do, Paul, is what I assume pugs would sound like if they could speak.
Oh dear.
Oh yeah.
I kind of imagine they'd just be like,
Kill me.
Yeah, well,
Why am I alive?
Every moment I live is agony.
I'm in so much pain.
Yeah. I actually, that is one of my dog voices. So I do voices of what my dogs. One of them, and what the dogs are actually thinking too. And sometimes they engage in deep conversation with Coco, mainly.
They've tried. They just found you didn't have the philosophical clout to maintain that kind of dialogue.
Hello, Coco. They're both girl dogs. Hello, Coco.
that is.
I'm gonna eat your doll if you leave it on the floor. Like that.
That is harrowing.
Smoking 40 a day. Just that.
Yeah, that little
inhaling a cigarette in a single drag. Like,
it's like a Tom and Jerry cartoon.
It's the cheap chews I get from Humbug.
It's all that rawhide, isn't it?
Yeah.
Undigestible rawhide.
No, I'm just chewing on a chew. I'll be with you doing it.
I don't know what else you expect me to do with it, with a name like that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I peed on the bloody floor again.
That dog's not sorry.
That doesn't sound like a dog that's
Swiss Army hat. The Swiss Army hat, as it's the
Swiss Army hat.
Because I can't fucking speak.
Army hat.
I like that though, because you look pretty swish when you've got it on.
I can see the marketing coming out.
A nun,
The Swish Army hats.
a journalist, a newspaper boy, and a cowboy. That's like some kind of
walk into a
deranged
bar.
YMCA. All in the same hat.
Oh, I'm getting passed around like a Swish Army hat.
Oh,
I'm going to be as baggy as one too. Right.
Ooh.
That's us.
No, thank you.
that's us. Oh, that's the best way to end an episode ever.
I thought we'd ended after the intro.